Everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the Samsung Galaxy S10e and see if this particular phone is still worth buying in 2023 in the later part of this particular year. Now, there's a few things I'll definitely tell you. I definitely do think that the Samsung Galaxy S10e was a very interesting phone that Samsung made. I just don't really think it's necessarily worth buying anymore, considering the fact that it's pretty much already 2 years outdated with software support. So, we'll get into that in a second. The exterior, though, still looks pretty good. Like, it's actually pretty shocking how good of a phone this thing still looks like basically so late into its lifespan. We're getting that 5.8-inch dynamic AMOLED display, 1080p, and it's still a very decent panel. It's one of the smaller phones Samsung made, for their S series, and it looks very, very nice. The big thing here is, though, it only has a 60 Hz display, so not 90 or 120 Hz, but it's still an okay panel. It's still actually a pretty good panel for coming out in 2019. You're getting that USB Type-C port, headphone jack, and micro SD card slot on this phone, which is actually pretty insane. Once again, having that type of capability is super cool, and I genuinely love seeing this kind of stuff because it's just such a nice thing to have. I think this type of capability is super cool, and this kind of stuff speaks mountains to me. Basically, for the end of our Samsung Galaxy S10e lifespan, one of the biggest things was having that micro SD card slot and everything like that. So that was a very, very nice thing that this particular phone had at the time. Now, on top of that, another big thing for this phone is the glass back. You're getting that dual camera setup, wireless and reverse wireless charging, which is something that's so cool. And then, I think that's a very good thing going on for this particular phone. So beyond that, I think this phone looks very, very good on the outside and still gets a thumbs up for me for sure. Now, on top of that, the biggest thing and the biggest caveat or the biggest asterisk I would say for this particular phone is probably its software longevity. This phone really isn't getting the next version of software, and actually it's been outdated for about 2 years now. So that's kind of the biggest issue that we're getting here, and that's kind of the sad thing here. Personally, for me, if I'm getting a phone, I want it to last as long as possible, and this is essentially not going to be one of those phones. This phone is essentially going to be on its last leg of software. It's already stopped at Android 12. We're like on Android 14 right now. So that's kind of a big turnoff, I would say, for this particular phone. Like I said, I don't think it would be the reason why I wouldn't buy this phone, but it would be a reason why I would be like, I don't know if this phone is necessarily worth it from that standpoint. You're probably better off purchasing a device that might still be supported in some other ways. So just kind of keep that in mind as well. Beyond that, I think this is still a good phone, from a hardware perspective, and even Android 12 is fine. But like I said, it's probably not going to be a good reason to buy this phone anymore. Performance-wise, though, interestingly enough, you did have that Snapdragon 855 chipset with 6 gigs of RAM on the base model, but it did go up to 8 gigs of RAM. And I think this was a pretty cool thing going on for this particular phone. Having that type of, power and that type of capability was a really nice thing. Now, it's not perfect, right? It's still going to be glitchy. It's still going to be giving you like a kind of, like a wishy-washy type of experience for a lot of things you're going to be doing. But I think it actually still is fairly good in terms of the power standpoint. Like I said, you'd be surprised how good of a job, Samsung did with this type of phone. And I think I think for what they're doing now compared to then, they've definitely made a lot of improvements on their devices. So to kind of sum it up, what I'll tell you is I think the Samsung Galaxy S10e isn't really worth buying anymore, but it was a really good phone when it first came out. Like, this device was so good the first day it came out, and even now it still is very interesting. Like I said, though, I just probably wouldn't recommend buying this phone anymore. But beyond that, I think it was still a very interesting device when it comes down to it. So that kind of covers it up there. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that'll mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.